Hi, everyone. This is Brian Lisenby from Lisenby Immigration Law, and we're going to be talking about how you can strengthen your EB-1 case today. And the reason I wanted to share this video, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because recently I've had a lot of clients reach out, a lot of people reach out for EB-1 evaluations to get an idea of what they can do to strengthen their case or what they can do, or just to see if they're eligible to file for the EB-1. And so this was inspired by the sheer number of people who are curious and wondering, do I qualify? This video doesn't represent an attorney-client relationship. Solely, I'm sharing the information here so that you can get a better idea of what you can do now to strengthen your case. And hopefully you find some of the content, some of the suggestions I share and provide useful, because ultimately that's where I find the most joy is if people are able to take something that I say, something that I provide, and use it to their benefit so that they can live and work in the United States. That's the ultimate goal. So hopefully something that I say here today will really help you in your immigration journey, especially for those of you who are completing your graduate programs, working on your master's, working on your PhD, or for those who have graduated already and are making a difference in the world, or those of you who are just spectacular in some amazing way. And so hopefully something we say here today will allow you to strengthen your case and prepare you for an EB-1 filing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so strengthening your resume for an EB-1 petition. So the first thing I wanted to talk to everyone about is basically whenever someone approaches you and asks for an EB-1 evaluation, a lot of times these people and a lot of you are the cherry on top, or you're the cat's pajamas or the bee's knees, all that in a bag of chips. So there's a lot of different phrases that people use to describe who you are. And you are that person. You're an incredible person, incredibly qualified. You have made a difference in the world. And that is something to be proud of. That's amazing. Doesn't mean you're qualified for an EB-1. We'd have to look at that. And ultimately, that decision is going to be up to a USCIS adjudicator, and it's a subjective decision. It's not objective. So you have to prepare a case that's going to be presented before somebody who's already skeptical and prove to them that you really are the cherry on top. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be the best of the best? What does it mean to be qualified for an EB-1? I think a good way to think about it is, and some people call this the Einstein visa. I don't think that's necessarily appropriate. Einstein was the best. He was number one, incredible, the very top of the top. I think the EB-1 is more for people in the top 10, maybe even 20-ish%, but that top 10% of their field, of their specialty. So you can think of it that way. So good questions to think about are you already qualified for an EB-1? Are you overconfident in your EB-1 case? Are there some things you should be doing to strengthen your EB-1 that you're not doing right now because you think you're already there? And then how can you stand out from the crowd? There's a lot of different cherries. There's a lot of people who are impressive in this world, in the United States. How can you make your cherry shine the brightest? How can you stand out? How can you be the cherry on top? I wanted to share a quote here. This is just, I thought this was really applicable. I was listening to a podcast, and Hayden Hutchinson's mom, Melissa, and for those of you who don't know Hayden Hutchinson, he was the #2 overall NFL draft pick in this last NFL draft, drafted by the Detroit Lions. But his mom said, if they don't laugh, you're not dreaming big enough. So I just thought that was appropriate for EB-1 candidates because I love when people come to me and they just know that they have a strong case. And sometimes in my mind, I'm like, maybe even laughing a little bit because you're not quite there. Or maybe you are there. And I think it's really good. I think that's the best approach, because if you're not dreaming big enough, then people aren't going to laugh. And honestly, I've been surprised sometimes by the cases that get approved by USCIS. You never know if your petition is going to work out, and sometimes it's worth taking that chance. Sometimes it's worth taking that risk, especially with EB1s, because we all know about the backlogs in the EB2 and EB3 category for certain individuals from certain countries, especially India and China. And if you can qualify for an EB1 and get that green card without going through the perm labor certification process, that may be worth the risk, even if you don't have the strongest of cases. So definitely work on that case. Definitely believe in yourself. Definitely believe in your petition. Also get some sound advice and do what you can to make it strong, but don't be scared. Dream big. Uh, Confidence is super important, especially with immigration petitions. So there are different EB1 categories. For example, and most of what the content of this video is about is the EB1A category, which is a category where you can self-petition, whereas the EB1B and EB1C categories you have to be sponsored for. And your employer can sponsor the EB1A petition as well, but it's ultimately your petition, and which is great. It's something you can pay for yourself, something you can do yourself. So it adds a little bit of flexibility in that regard, but the qualifications for each category are different. So basically EB1A, and I'll be quick with this, the EB1A is basically for people who have sustained national or international acclaim and their achievements have been recognized in their field of expertise. So basically that means your peers, the people around you, they know about you. They know who you are. You're famous within your crowd. And so if your crowd is software engineers and you stand out from the pack because you have the #1 podcast for software engineering, you probably qualify for an EB1A. If you're a scientist and you study insects for a living, specifically how beetle technology can be used in developing sonar equipment, and your peers know about you, then you're probably going to qualify for the EB1A. So if you stand out from the crowd and your peers in your crowd know about you, that you might have a chance. So then after we've established that you stand out from the crowd, that you have sustained achievement, and that's national, international acclaim, then you also have to provide evidence of a one-time achievement, and that means a really, really nice award. Think an Olympic gold medal, Nobel Peace Prize. We're talking about amazing, top of the top awards. And this can be in different countries, there's different awards for people. There's I know there's the equivalent of the Tony Award in the United States, or the Oscars in India and in Canada and in different places. Whatever those really impressive awards are, that might be something that qualifies you alone for an EB1A. If you don't have one of those things, which most of us don't have a Nobel Peace Prize, you're going to have to meet 3 of 10 criteria that USCIS spells out in the regulations. And we'll go over those in a little bit. So EB1B, you have to demonstrate international recognition for your outstanding achievements. Again, international recognition in a particular academic field. So whatever your field of study is, then you have to have 3 years of experience in teaching or research in that area, and you must be entering or in the United States to pursue a tenure track position or a comparable research position at a university, institution of higher education, or at a private employer. Now, if it's at a private employer, you also have to have an offer of employment, and you have to show documentation that that employer currently hires 3 full-time researchers. For this category, you also have to meet 2 of 6 listed criteria. We're not going over those criteria in this video. Do recognize they're very similar to the criteria for an EB1A, but you just have to meet 2 of those 6 listed criteria. When I do EB1A evaluations for people, I'm usually also looking at their EB1B qualifications, especially if they're being sponsored or working for an employer. EB1C, you must have been employed outside the United States for at least 1 year in the 3 years preceding the petition, or for 1 year in the 3 years preceding your most recent entry in non-immigrant status to the United States, lawful non-immigrant admission. So there's a little bit of nuance in that regard. Your U.S. petitioner must have been doing business for at least 1 year outside, and they must have a qualifying relationship to the entity you worked for outside the United States. So there has to be a relationship between the companies. So, for example, let's say company ABC has a big office in India, and they're sending an employee to the United States to work for ABC United LLC in the United States. That might be an example of a qualifying relationship. That's a great way to get an EB-1. The last thing for the EB-1C is that the company needs to intend to employ you in a managerial or executive capacity in the United States, and it has to be managerial or executive capacity. That's critical for those petitions. If you have, that's a really great way to get a green card. All right, EB-1A criteria, and you probably noticed this, but my pictures I've been using, I used a picture of bees here because you are the bee's knees. I used a picture of a cat because you are the cat's pajamas. Picture of a cherry because you are the cherry on top. I think that's really important to remember, that we're talking about the best of the best, the brightest of the brightest, and that is you. So EB-1A criteria. These are the 10 criteria. This is where I'm going to talk about what you can do to strengthen your EB-1 case as I go through these criteria for an EB-1A. This is the meat of this video. This is the important part. Please pay attention. So first criteria, and remember you have to have 3 of these to qualify for an EB-1A if you do not possess in the alternate an award that is the greatest award ever, meaning Nobel Peace Prize, Olympic gold medal, Oscar, something like that. So EB-1A, evidence of receipt of lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence. I typically actually don't utilize this criteria a ton in the petitions that I have personally filed. There are some really great things that you can get, grants for your research that can be useful in an EB-1 petition, or if there was a lesser award that you've received because of your research at your university, or just in your field generally through a membership in a certain club. Maybe you receive a best presentation award. We can use those things in your petition. It's generally not an area where I work with people to improve their case, because I think there's a little bit lower hanging fruit that are a little easier to work towards. But if you have received prizes, that can be a useful criteria. That is something that we can utilize in your petitions. There's just other ways that I typically can work with people to strengthen their petitions more. Now, that doesn't mean avoid that. You should definitely be seeking awards. You should definitely be seeking prizes. If you have those things, possess those things, then they can be utilized in your EB-1 petition. Evidence of membership in associations in the field which demand outstanding achievement of their members. So if you have been invited to be part of an association, or you have joined an association which only allows members to join because of an outstanding achievement related to your work, that membership can be utilized in your EB-1 petition. Something you can do right now to strengthen your eligibility for the EB-1 is to sign up for or seek out membership in these types of associations. Something I don't think is super helpful is to sign up for 4 or 5 memberships the same day that you file your EB-1 petition and include that evidence. It's helpful to sign up now and be an active member for a period of time if you can get in. Now, a lot of these associations are going to demand outstanding achievement of their members, and I think that's the key there, is that you have to have done something or accomplished something to receive membership in that association. Evidence of published material about you in professional or major trade publications or other major media. The important thing is that it's major media or major trade publications. So when something's published about you or your research, that can be utilized in the petition. You should reach out to these news agencies. And if you've published something of note or you've done something amazing and it is newsworthy, find people to share that. Now, the strongest type of evidence for this category is going to be when it's actually in a newspaper or major media source that has a widespread audience. So something I often see people send my way when I ask for EB-1 evaluations is their school will have published an article about their research. For example, I graduated the University of Nebraska from the University of Nebraska College of Law here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I was on the international mediation team, and we won that competition. It was really cool. And as part of that, as part of winning that, the law school published an article about the team I was on in the law schools on the law school's website and in their newsletter that they sent out to people. That would not have worked for this criteria in an EB-1. It wasn't widespread enough. It's really specific to Nebraska. It's really specific to the University of Nebraska College of Law. It's really specific to the people that are going to be reading that news. So it doesn't have the type of widespread audience that something published in the Wall Street Journal or Time Magazine or the New York Times or Good Housekeeping or Science or Nature. There's just a lot of things that have a lot larger audience, and those are the type of major media sources that should be publishing your work. So if you've done something that's newsworthy, you can reach out to those people if they don't approach you and see if they will publish something about it. Now, I have seen I did see a case where we used successfully a YouTuber's evidence of his widespread audience for this criteria. There's creative ways you can work through your petition. Also, certain podcasts have been used. I've seen certain individuals get their case approved because of the widespread nature of their podcast and the sheer number of people and subscribers to their podcast that we were able to show. So there's different ways to get that news out there. And yeah, so podcasts might be a way. Other major media news sources, you're going to be aware of them, but get published in a major media publication if possible. Evidence you've been asked to judge the work of others, either individually or on a panel. Now, this is a great category that a lot of people can strengthen easily. If you have published something in a journal, then you have had contact with someone who could invite you to review other people in your field's work, which counts for this category. Really, a lot of individuals I file EB-1s for have judged the work of their peers by serving as a peer reviewer for a scientific journal. If you've published in 8, 9, 10 journals, you could reach out to all of those journals and ask to be a reviewer. And that's going to be a really easy and great way to strengthen your case. You can also participate on panels or in conferences as a judge. If you're invited to serve in that capacity, or you could reach out to say you're willing to serve as a judge in that capacity, that would count for this criteria. So it's a really, really easy way and not a super time-consuming way to build your resume. Now, if you're going to reach out to be a peer reviewer, make sure that you're saving that communication with the journal as you work in that capacity. You want to save evidence that you were invited to serve as a peer reviewer and evidence that you completed the review. So be creating that evidence, be saving evidence of these things as you go through them, as you accomplish them, but really easy way. And my suggestion, what I usually tell people is try to get at least get 20 of those. Now, obviously, if you have less than that, if you have less than 20 peer reviews, you could still qualify for an EB-1. There's lots of ways to qualify for an EB-1. There's 10 criteria. You might have a stronger case in some of these areas than others. But building a stronger resume can really help the USCIS adjudicators approve your case. And the stronger your case is, the easier you're going to get it through the system. So yeah, we've done it. I've filed with as few as 3 and had success before. But I really suggest doing more than that, 10, 20 if possible. Okay. Evidence of your original scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, or business-related contributions of major significance to the field. So this is really an open category. There's a lot of things you can do to show that you've accomplished something great. Receiving grants for your work can be a really good way to show that you've done something original. that you've contributed something original to your field that's of major significance. Patents are a really great way to do this. Any kind of commercial or monetized success. We're in America. Anytime something makes money, that is persuasive to the U.S. government. Um, so those are really easy ways. Remember, if you're using patents here, your patent it's a lot stronger, and a patent is great evidence, but a patent is even stronger if you can show it was commercialized or it had some great impact in some other way. So um, getting a patent, really strong, great evidence for an EB-1. If you can show that that patent was utilized, even stronger. So um, monetizing commercial success. And I'll just share a quick story here. I had a client come to me once with an EB-1 case asking me to file it. He'd had a prior denial. They'd put together a pretty good case. They hadn't talked about the commercial success of what he had contributed in the petition. And when I reviewed his case, it was really clear that the company he was working for was really relying on his research to make money. He was probably the biggest reason the company still existed. And so we were able to get some letters from people that used the company, relied on the company. We were able to provide some evidence of their commercial success because of his research, and his petition went through pretty flawlessly. So anytime you can strengthen your EB-1 application by showing that something you have done has led to someone's pockets getting richer, that's going to be strong criteria. That's going to really help your case, in my opinion. Evidence of authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major trade publications or other major media. So, what have you published? And I will say really clearly, one article published in Nature is worth a lot of articles published in other journals. Certain journals have more weight, and each journal has different scores depending on your area of industry. If you can get in those higher ranked journals, Nature, Science, and the like, you're going to have a more successful case, especially if those publications, those articles you're publishing in those journals are cited too. In a lot of cases, those really highly ranked journals that are cited 20 times, that's worth being cited almost 200 times in a lower ranked journal. So that does matter. Now, citations aren't everything for an EB-1 application. You can be approved with an EB-1 if you have less than 100 citations. That doesn't matter. You don't even necessarily have to have citations. And I think sometimes people think that's the most important part of this category. It's one of 10 criteria to qualify for it. Now, is it helpful? Yes, absolutely. Especially if you're in a scientific field or something or a field where people are expected to publish articles. That's going to be an important part of your criteria. But certain fields are published and cited more. And so we can show evidence for people who are in a field that is a newer field and hasn't been researched that much. If you have 60 citations, you might be in the top 1% or top 10% of your field. And if we're able to show that and prove that to USCIS, then you can qualify for this benefit. In other fields, 1,000 citations might be nothing. That might be what everyone does. And so it's just important that we're able to show USCIS that what you have accomplished puts you in the top 10% of your field. And I think that's really an important distinction to remember. Okay, evidence. And another thing for this category, the articles don't necessarily have to be published in a journal, just as long as scholarly people are reading the article and it's a major publication or major media, then we can use that as evidence. So journals aren't the only place where you can publish material that is utilized by people. And as long as we're able to show that members of your field are utilizing what you have accomplished, then we can put together a case. Evidence that your work has been displayed at artistic exhibitions or showcases. Sometimes people will ask me, well, do my posters work that I presented at scientific conferences? The answer is no for this prong. This is mostly just for artists and the like. So just a different criteria, not really scientific. This is for dancers. This is for people producing film. This is for people that are painters. and the like. Evidence of your performance or leading or critical role in distinguished organizations. This is a criteria that I often use and can be really strong. So if you have performed in a role at a company and it has been leading or critical, then we can usually make an argument that that qualifies, that prong is a qualifying criteria for your EB-1. Evidence you command a high salary or other significant high remuneration in relation to others in the field. I often make a salary argument. A lot of the clients I've represented have worked for really great companies who have been willing to pay their employees really, really well and compensate them for their work. Good rule of thumb: if you're in the 90th percentile, 80th percentile for your pay rate, we can probably make a good argument there. It's not always the most persuasive category, but if you are paid more than others, then we can use that criteria. Now we just have to be able to provide evidence that your high salary is truly high compared to others. And so we'll use government wage sources, we'll use simple wage sources like salary.com to prove that. But if you're paid a lot, you're paid a lot. If you're not paid a lot, you're not paid a lot. Some employers will give their employees a boost just because they want to employ them on a permanent basis, and that might be something that we are able to utilize in your petition. And then evidence of your commercial successes in the performing arts. That's going to apply to really specific individuals. I don't use that. I have not used that criteria in a lot of the EB-1 filings I've participated in. But if you've been able to make money, again, if you've been able to make money in the performing arts, then we can use that evidence to strengthen your EB-1. So make some money. That's always part of the trick with the US government. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I just want to remind everyone that after you qualify for 3 of those 10 criteria for an EB-1A, that it does go to another review with the USCIS adjudicator, and it's ultimately up to their subjective opinion if not only you met those criteria, but that you met it well enough that you are extraordinary, that you are the cherry on top. So even if you just meet 3 of those 10 criteria, that doesn't necessarily mean your EB-1 will be approved. Even if you meet 6 of those 10 criteria, it doesn't necessarily mean your EB-1 will be approved. That's why it's important to put together a persuasive case and have strong arguments for those criteria that you actually meet it, because there's the objective component, you meet those criteria, and then there's the subjective review of the USCIS adjudicator, that is, did you meet it strong enough? Is your EB-1 application good enough for USCIS to believe you are qualified for an EB-1 green card? Thanks, everyone. If you have questions or you need help evaluating your EB-1 application or filing your EB-1 application, you can reach out. Again, this video is legal advertising. It doesn't constitute an attorney-client relationship, but feel free to reach out if you would like help in any way. Thanks.